United Lutheran Seminary presents the Seminary Explores podcast, conversations on faith, art, people, politics, theology, life, and more, with voices from around the corner and around the globe. Welcome to the Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenhein. My guest is artist and sculptor Sean McGraw, a visiting artist in residence at the Gettysburg National Military Park. Sean is the founder of Historical Sculpture, LLC. He studied at the Academy of Classical Design in North Carolina, at the National Academy of Design in New York and elsewhere. His Bachelor of Fine Arts is from the Savannah College of Art and Design. He has a studio in South Florida. Sean, welcome to the Seminary Explores.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So you are here on your second residency in the Gettysburg program, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, definitely.
And what was it like for your project for the first residency and your project now? Could you tell us something about that?
Sure, yeah. The first residency was based on just Gettysburg and the battles, the 3-day battles here, and different people, significant figures in the battle.
So it was all figurative work?
Yes, in fact, that I'd say is 99.9% of my work.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because I do sculpture, but I also do illustration, like classical illustration, like oil painting, Leyendecker, and those, Rockwell, those people out at Illacook too. But the first residency was about the Civil War. So then when, obviously I couldn't get enough and I wanted to come back. And so coming back, and we have to make another proposal and set all that up, trying to get your spot, here. And I thought, well, what would be different so we don't do the same thing, that wouldn't be as interesting. I thought, well, it's the anniversary of World War I. It's 100 years ago, and then this term in 2018, it would be the anniversary of our first main battles, American battles in World War I. So I thought, oh, well, this is really great because Camp Colt was here in Gettysburg and Eisenhower. And I thought, well, that would probably tie in. So this time, I'm focusing on World War I and World War I specifically in Gettysburg with Camp Colt and Eisenhower running that camp and the tank, battalion and that kind of era here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you've been doing some live work at the Visitor Center, haven't you?
Okay, so last time I was at the VC in the Rotunda. This time they have I don't know if it's a temporary exhibit, but they've got an exhibit case with a piece of tree with, I think it has some artillery shells or some mini balls in it that's now part of that exhibit space is being used. So we moved to the Eisenhower property.
Okay.
So I've been out there.
Nice.
Yes. That's where I've done some public engagement.
Very good.
Here, yeah.
And so have you been working on some clay models?
No, I didn't. Actually, this time I've been just doing illustration. The main project I've had is to do a centennial poster, basically, for the Park Service with about World War I. Okay. So, I have been taking, doing a lot of research and being involved with models for Civil War. An outfit and a World War I U.S. outfit, and then the Park Ranger. And so this would be kind of like 3 of those entities being, visually displayed.
Okay.
Yeah, so
you're doing a lot of drawing and illustration and preparatory sketches.
Right.
For that.
That's what this has been, yeah. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And how has it been out at the farm?
Oh, the farm is amazing. I mean,
it's a great spot, isn't it?
Yeah, to be able to be in a building that was here during the battle, and it's just the best. Yeah, and then even though we've had even if it rains or it doesn't, you've got spaces in there to work when it rains. When not, it's amazing to sit outside, come outside. It's the best.
Yeah. Well, tell us something about your childhood influences. I know that you've been interested in history for a long time, but could you say something about that? How that influenced you as an artist, basically? Yeah,
definitely. To me, I came into art through history, and I think a lot of people probably, I have this, especially with postmodern and the contemporary art scene, it's kind of history and art, what, but that's really how, for me, it grew, because I was exposed to a lot of, literature that had illustrations of great historical events, and then, as I matured in those formative, times when you're in elementary school and middle school, and you're trying to figure out who did those paintings, and you start to go in, and most of them were paintings, some drawings, and then you start to see who those artists were, and then obviously you're wanting to emulate those things. And so I chased art through my also equal interest in the history that it portrays, you know. And where I grew up is in rural part of South Florida, where there were a lot of Second Seminole War battles, which is, you know, such a regional. You know, it's the most expensive war the United States ever fought, but it was a very regional thing. A lot of people don't know about it. So I spent time, you know, in Boy Scouts. We did our ceremonies, like Order of the Arrow was there on these sites, and it was actually before some of them were known. So in my life, it went from being just a park that T-ball and you know, Boy Scouts happened at, to them actually having the state come in and re-look at the site, and then they found evidence of that being a battle, and so now these are like commemorated sites. So, you know, it was all part of like growing up in Florida, where history has, you know, is interesting. There's so much of it, but so little is told. I feel like publicly, and so, you know, hopefully that's changing and all of that. We're up here, you know, for such a long time. History's everywhere. Everybody's you know, very aware of it. So. Yeah, that was growing up a big part of that, you know, and then art becomes, you know, you're trying to find how to, you know, paint or draw like those people, and then that's its own life search, you know, and the skills and, you know, how to do that. So. And
you've studied a lot of anatomy, right?
Right.
To be able to,
for figurative art, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, just like those people did, I learned how, you know, how they went about their schooling, as it were, and what they learned to do with anatomy, so that they could have, you know, and, you know, be able to do things so that they look anatomically correct, and you know, proportions and scale and these things that, you know, because we all see each other. You know, figurative art, we see people all the time, so everyone knows when something's off a little bit. You know, you just see, you may not be able to tell what it is, but we all know, you know, if something's too long or too thin or too, you know. So you have to really be into, you know, anatomy that way to make sure you can be as correct as you can try and be, you know.
It's quite tricky because there's I mean, the body is very different.
It's so complex.
The shadows,
so complex.
I was thinking of a figure drawing professor years ago in undergrad said, I'll never forget, he said, "Draw what you see, not what you think you see."
Right. Yes, definitely.
Because that's often, you know, the foreshortening. And the moment that the figure moves, it changes.
Right. Yeah. You analyze something and all that. Yeah. So that's and that's funny, because that's a big part of, you know, how to see. All of it is how to see, right? You know, and so because your brain does that for you, and you have to kind of stop it and be like, well, no, I don't need all that extra. You know, I need to simplify this so that I can handle doing these steps and all. So, yeah, it's a great lifelong journey. You know, those lessons and learning that kind of thing. So it never stops. You know, you always feel like you can improve, right? So you're always searching for that kind of thing. And so this is part of that, you know, right? It's time to improve and create.
So you're doing a combination of working and research, right? You're doing the drawing and the spending time at the Eisenhower site. And is there anything else you wanted to say about the different things that you're doing while you're physically here?
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know if it's 100% like, you know, for the Gettysburg Battlefield thing, but where it is located, I also do things off campus, you know, and so I go over to Westchester and Chadds Ford, because there's so many of the people that I admire's work from long ago there that did the same subject matter. So I go over there and I can see, you know, in person how Howard Pyle or like Frank Schoonover worked, and then I can look at those paintings, do my drawings, and then come back. And, you know, so this, not only is it amazing because Gettysburg is a national park site and you have all of the military history, and then you have the pretty rural Pennsylvania area, but you're so close, you know, really to like Harrisburg or Philadelphia, and so you can take advantage of those things that I don't have at my, you know, access in South Florida, where I'm the same way. So
very good.
Yeah,
very good.
It's fun.
Would you mind saying something to, for folks who aren't familiar with the process of how a sculpture is done?
Sure.
Would you mind saying something brief about the technical process?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what I do, I use a ceramic shell to do the bronze. So unlike a painting, I'll use it like as an example. So like you know, painting or illustration. Now I can do the oil painting. We can scan or photograph it, right? And then there it is. You know, you can digitally send it, you know, use it for scale it, whatever. So with sculpture, with the painting, I do everything, beginning to end. Sculpture, I do a clay, oil-based clay, okay, model, basically. So whatever it is I'm wanting to sculpt, I do that in this oil-based clay that a lot of people use now. I mean, traditionally, it was water-based clay like potters still use. But once, around the turn of the century, turn of the 20th century, early 20th century, James Earl Fraser and Daniel Chester French and those guys started to like experiment with, petroleum products, because all of a sudden we had all, oil, right? And so that they could concoct these like really rancid, terrible things. Now, I mean, I know some people, Paul Moore out in Oklahoma, he has actually a piece of that clay from James Earl Fraser. But that he actually used. So it's different stuff than we have now. But now it's all been processed. It's less toxic, and so you can work on the thing forever. You can start a sculpture with this clay and walk away for years and come back, and it's just going to be there. No, it's not going to really be that bad. Where with the water base, you would have to always keep it wet. You always have to be dampening it, which is much more labor intensive. So you make an armature out of metal first. Usually I do that with aluminum. Wiring, because it's easier, it's malleable. And then, I guess it starts first off again with anatomy, where you make a plan of how things are going to be, so you know where to bend your armature so that you don't have it sticking out where you don't want it to, and you can hang the clay on it and make proportions correctly for the figures. Then you put your clay on there and you refine that, and then there's different tools. And then after that, I use it like a very low, like the safest you can get turpentine. Basically, it's like a fake turpentine that smooth. You brush it, that smooths out the tooling, from your hands, to make this very like finished in spots. So then I have this finished kind of clay sculpture, but it's extremely fragile, because if you dropped it, it'd smush or whatever. So I have to take that to a place where I'm going to make it into a more permanent material, right, like metal. Sometimes we do it in like a bronze powder with a resin, but you could make it in whatever, plaster, right? So I deal with, you have to deal with the foundries, as people are equipped to do that. So I take that over there. Generally, they make a mold. It's like a silicone mold of the clay piece that I made, and then they pour a wax into this mold, and then you have a wax replica. So you still don't really want the wax thing, because it's brittle, and so they take the wax and they have this kind of like a slurry mixture of ceramic and silica, and it looks kind of like milk, or like pancake battery thing, and they dip that wax in there and let it dry, and do this over and over again until they have a whole shell made, and then they heat up that shell once it's dried, and all the wax comes out. And so then you have a negative that the wax was in, that's got perfect, reproduction of your sculpture, and that's what the bronze is put into. So then they pour the bronze. Usually the foundry waits until they have enough molds all ready to go, so they can do one run, because all the cost of like heating up the bronze and all that. And then that shell has to be hammered and chiseled off of that bronze, and pressure washed, and they get it down, and then you spend time, that's when I come back in, and we spend time, refinishing the metal. So like grinding off little things that might have been left from the casting process, and then once we get it all how I want it, we patina it, pick a patina color, wax, and different acids. And then after that, we design a base, usually out of, I like, hardwoods, like cherry and stuff. We make a base, get title tags, made up, and it's a very involved process. It really is. It's not, illustration. I've been doing that more lately, because that's something I have complete control over. So someone can, say, hey, here's my book that I'm just publishing, and I need whatever on the cover of this or in it, and then I can just make that and send that to them digitally, and or the original, whatever they want. And it's, but sculpture is a team. Definitely, it's always been a team thing. So.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the pancake batter comparison. Yeah. No, it's so helpful, because to
visualize
picture it, right? To help
yeah.
visualize it. That's great.
Yeah. It's what it's like. Yeah, it's this big thing of that. And then my work's generally smaller right now. I mean, I'm in the process of doing bigger pieces, but the bigger pieces cost more, and it's more political, and more people, and usually are public, and so you have different people involved, and so that takes longer. But so right now, most of my stuff is smaller, and that's easier for the founder to do. But sometimes you go and see, 2-story bronzes that they're working on, and you think of all the material, and it's really an amazing thing. Yeah.
So, and your Your project here, you mentioned a commemorative poster.
Yes, right. So my plan is to have this kind of Saturday Evening Post, reminiscent. I mentioned earlier, like Leyendecker or Saltpepper or Cornwell kind of poster that would commemorate World War I, but also with the Park Services and part of that commemoration. So it's kind of an interesting thing, because generally it'd be just about World War I in the United States or World War I in France and what these things you see. But I think having the involvement with the Park Service in terms of representing that, or like presenting that publicly to our country as that, I thought was an interesting thing. So,
it's a very interesting. It's a collaboration.
Yeah, definitely, and to show their part in that, which I, kind of in the research I've done, I haven't really seen too much of that. So I think that's kind of because the Park Service started like right around that time, right? So you don't have a lot of this World War. I mean, those were World War I guys. I mean, the original Ranger uniforms are like campaign hats and that kind of stuff, and so it's evocative of it, but you don't really see a lot of those things together with the doughboy and the U.S. Park Ranger thing. So I think that's kind of a neat visual,
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I wish you all the best with the rest of your residency, and hope that it will be a fruitful and interesting time.
Yes, it already has so far.
Great.
So, yeah.
And certainly the visitors who get to see you working at the Eisenhower site have an extra treat to them to get to see you live at work.
Definitely, yeah.
You've been listening to The Seminary Explores. I'm Katie Giebenheim. My guest has been artist and sculptor Sean McGraw. Learn more about his work at his website. It's SeanSMcGraw.com. SeanSMCGraw.com. Sean, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You have been listening to The Seminary Explores, a production of United Lutheran Seminary with campuses in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We invite you to visit our website at unitedlutheranseminary.edu. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of United Lutheran Seminary or the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.